Hey everyone, welcome to Friday Night Live, where we're just going to chat and talk about games and stuff. I'm here with RPG Abstractionist, otherwise known as Paul. Hey man.
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad, not bad. And then maybe if people bug you enough, you'll actually make a video for your channel.
One day. I figured I'd come up with the most difficult name to say or to pronounce.
Yeah. All right, so last weekend was it?
Your video's frozen.
My video's frozen? How's my video frozen?
It was.
Oh.
It was. It's not now.
Okay, good. So the reason why we're doing this live thing is because we were supposed to play Twilight 2000, but then Lynn couldn't make it, so we're like, hey, let's just do a live stream and hang out and talk for a bit, just for fun, instead of playing a game. So last week we did we changed it up and we did a bit of co-op gaming, which was fun. Like, I've never done it before, but it wasn't that big of a leap from how we used to play our white box game. Really?
Yeah.
The game where I planned literally nothing. I was using an oracle the whole time because I couldn't be bothered to plan the game ahead of time.
Well, think about it this way: if the players don't know you're not planning ahead of time, that you're using an oracle, and you don't tell them, would they even know?
No,
because it's basically how you react to what happens, right? So,
yeah, all they would know is that you're rolling dice for something, but they wouldn't know that they've asked you a question that you have no idea what the answer is to, and you're like, roll and find out.
Well, it's not anything in the real world, so whether you make it up ahead of time or you decide on the moment,
yeah,
it's all fiction.
Yeah, exactly. As long as there's really no problem. Like, I don't see an issue with using an oracle when you're running a game, as long as the decision you come up with kind of makes sense to the game. Like, if the players ask you a question, you roll because you don't know the answer, and it comes up yes or no, and depending on whether you're like, okay, well, it's likely or less likely, what have you. As long as you justify the reason based on what's going on in the game, how is that any different than having pre-planned it?
It's not. I mean, don't they say that you come up with an idea as GM and the players will totally ignore it anyway? So
yeah,
how is that any different, right? It's just you get to participate in the not following the plan.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a little more fun. Like, for me, it was a little more fun as a DM to do that, because it kept me on my toes, and I didn't have any pre-planned notions on how the game should go. So then go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's kind of nice that you actually get to have a surprise as the GM.
Yeah.
Because, that's the whole fun of the game, especially if you do hex crawling or whatever, is the discovery of it. So, if the GM gets to participate in that too, you don't have any kind of feeling of awkwardness or apprehension about throwing up a challenge to the players that is beyond what they're capable of doing, because a lot of times, they'll make a decision, and if you're the GM, if they go around this corner, that could result in a total party kill. And if you don't know that, you can be more honest in how you're reacting with what or presenting,
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like having your own side game, your own mini it's like playing a solo game, except
for sure
you're not running the characters.
I was rewatching a video that I don't know whose channel it was on. It was either Bandit's Keep or the other guy who does the Hex.
Todd?
Yeah. And they did a video together, and Daniel was talking about his mapping game. And I didn't know this, but he actually took the whole mapping part of it from another game. So it's not even like this is a new idea. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the name of the game was, but he added that portion of it to his what do you call it, to his idea for how to do a solo, like generating the maps and stuff. I think I have it on my phone here.
Yeah, like
It's called The Hated Place or something.
Oh, yeah, The Hateful Place.
Hateful Place, that's it. Yeah. So apparently that's where he got the idea from, the whole mapping aspect for like generating treasure maps and stuff.
Really?
Yeah. I guess I didn't pay attention during the beginning of the video the first time I watched it, because I usually make notes of anything that comes up, like, oh, this is a tool I used, or this is something, worth looking at. And it makes sense that, you would take that from other games, because that's what original D&D did, right? They said, here's D&D, but to do combat, you need this other game called Chainmail. And to do wilderness exploration, you need that Avalon Hill game.
Outdoor survival.
Yeah. So it's like right from the very beginning of D&D, they were saying cobble together whatever game systems you want.
Yeah. Yeah, like here's a skeleton of a game. But by the way, you should probably have these other two games too. I was just listening to Daniel's podcast, not his solo on the Monsters and Treasure, the one he does with KR King. But yeah, he was talking about that. Like, yeah, Chainmail is a game that was pretty niche to like a certain group of gamers, but
yeah,
KR King was saying like outdoor survival is one of those games that like most households had in their house. Those are pretty popular games. Right? Yeah. So it wasn't like it wasn't as if, oh, you have to go out and get this game that's like really obscure that no one plays. Like it was a game that most people would have had.
Yeah. And even if they didn't have it, it was available. It wasn't like you had to like hunt through what do you call it? Those charity shops, like you buy secondhand stuff.
Oh yeah, like Salvation Army and like Value Village and stuff like that.
In Canada, I don't know what they're called in the States. But...
yeah, I don't know what they're called in the States either. But yeah, like I don't know, I like those stores. I found HeroScape in one of those stores, like a full, complete set of HeroScape.
Was it open or was it unopened?
It was open, but all the pieces are there.
I remember
$5.
When I got into that game, it was right when it was dying, and I went into London Drugs, which is like, I don't know if you guys have that in Ontario. It's like a chain drug.
I'm not in on Ontario, but yeah.
Sorry, the other end of the country. But they had, I think it was like 10 unopened starter boxes of Hero Quest, and they were burning them.
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
A piece.
And you bought them all?
No, I wasn't allowed to because I have too much stuff. But
womp womp. If only you'd known how much that would be worth now.
Oh, I know. Like if you had an original starter kit for unopened, like the very first one, because I know they did a second one with like swamp stuff, but I bet you could get $200-300 easily for an unopened box.
There's a website that sells like that stuff, and it's ridiculous. Just for terrain pieces, it's like $150 for like 40 terrain pieces.
Yeah. And now they're redoing it. Somebody else has bought the rights to HeroScape, and it's a Kickstarter now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I would pick that up.
It's super expensive.
It's a fun game. Like it's a good intro to like wargaming.
Well, and it was worth it just to buy the terrain pieces, because I know guys that played BattleTech that would like buy, 20 starter sets, because the equivalent terrain in like other companies that make terrain, it was 10 times the price, and it came with hexes, which is what the BattleTech maps are.
Yeah. So I've looked at it before and been like, hey, I wonder if I could run a hex crawl with these terrain pieces. Like,
yeah, you could. I mean, it would just be you'd have them with you'd have to put icons on the hexes, right?
Yeah. Like it's literally like you have grass and you have water, and then like depending on the expansion sets you've got like lava and stuff like that. But
yeah,
if you put like icon stickers or something on them, you could totally like
build. Yeah, you just buy a pack of those sticker sheets that you can print, whatever business cards or whatever on, and you could even make magnetic ones, and then put little magnets under the plastic, and then they would cling to it, and it wouldn't be permanent, and it wouldn't slip while you're playing too. So
Yeah, exactly. Oh, by the way, Flynn is watching.
oh, is he?
Yeah, I don't know. Can you see the chat on your side? I've never.
Well, let's see. Yeah. Oh, he's telling us what all the things we're getting wrong. Like he said, oh, it's outdoor survival.
Yeah, but no, Flynn, you're wrong. It was April Place. So yeah, when we playing the co-op game, like I was saying, it wasn't that much of a jump from playing our white box game, because our white box game was very loosey goosey, beer and pretzels kind of hex crawling. You're all wrong. Flynn says you're all wrong.
See, that's the great thing about being Canadian is you're not embarrassed to admit when you're wrong.
No, I'll apologize for it.
Well,
but yeah, it was fun though. Like I think like if I we talked about this in our group chat. Like going forward, I think doing co-op play is probably the way we're going to go for a lot of games. Maybe not for all games. We'll have like, because we have the AD&D game that you're running. Like that's obviously we're going to keep playing that as you running it as a DM. But things like Twilight 2000, it worked great. Even though like we didn't know the rules, but it still worked great.
I think in the case of like Twilight 2000, it's just a matter of like what are the specific game mechanics for that game? Because once you've played D&D or some other role-playing game, which is sort of open-ended or can be open-ended, that's when you really, once you have enough experience, you can play pretty much any game. And if you have the time to learn the rules, that's great. But if not, if you have somebody who has a fundamental understanding of it, you just learn as you go.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we missed the radiation part of it, but
there's a lot of stuff we missed. Like we didn't deal with the radiation, but also it's like baby steps. Like we're dealing with like, okay, how do the main mechanics work? And like it's for all intents and purposes, it is a year zero engine game.
Yeah,
but there are some differences, as there are with like all your zero engine games. Like there's the main mechanic of you have your attribute and your skill and you roll 2 dice, and then there's differences beyond that.
Yeah,
like Alien has the dice pool and stuff like that. But if you play enough games, you know what you're looking for. Like you're looking, okay, so what's the main mechanic I'm looking for? There's the combat mechanics, and then the rest you can just figure out as it comes up.
Yeah.
You know, like we're like when you brought up, because I was editing that video today, and we spent like 15 minutes looking for the goddamn morale rules.
We should have just said, well, let's use AD&D morale rules, and then for next time we'll figure out the Twilight.
Yeah. But like that's the thing. Like you knew, and like we knew, like, oh, this is how Flynn says, God help us.
God has nothing to do with role-playing games. Don't you remember the Satanic Panic?
But it was something you knew, like, oh, well, they've lost like one of their guys. We have a morale as a group, so theoretically the enemy should have a morale. What are those morale rules? So like we have this like base knowledge of like certain things we need to look for. Like next time, like the next time we play, there's what everyone is supposed to be doing in the vehicle. Like you all have jobs for that shift. Like there's a navigator, there's security. Like those are rules we're going to add on, and then we'll add on like the food and water thing. And like it's a dense game. It's a really fun game, but it's dense.
I think though, like considering what happened in our first game, we really didn't do a lot. We traveled from one location, Lotz or whatever it's called, and then we went to that. Was it Warsaw?
Yeah.
Well, we didn't even have to stop part way in the wilderness. So you can argue that we could hand wave the food and water from the first session anyway, because we would have had it to start with.
Yeah.
And we ended up in that other city, the Polish city in the south end of the map.
Krakow.
So you could argue that would have been the first time we would have rolled for food and water maybe anyway.
Yeah, that's true. And then like I read the rules a little bit. Lynn's like, dudes.
He's just trying to make us laugh.
Yeah, yes. There are like there's certain because like when we played like White Box, or you play like any old school game and you're doing a hex crawl, you're rolling once per hex or excuse me, once per day or whatever for like a random encounter.
Yeah.
There is a rule for that in T2K, which we didn't use because we each of us read some of the rules on the Wednesday. Yeah, Sandbox Generator. We each read some of the rules like between Wednesday and Friday. So like between the three of us, we had maybe 6 of all of the rules of the game like kind of understood.
Well, we knew enough to know when we should be looking for a certain rule.
Yeah, exactly.
Oblivious to the game mechanics.
Yeah. But like when it came down to it, when we used the solo rules and we used Mythic, even though we need to bake the Mythic procedures into the solo procedures for Twilight 2000, so because we forgot about it, and like that's really where Mythic kind of comes into its own, is when it's the chaos factor is going up and down and like really affecting your rolls.
Well, that's what I liked about the first edition AD&D is they had procedures for everything, so that it reminded you step by step, like whether that was like moving through the dungeon, whether that was combat, whether that was generating terrain or whatever. There's a fixed procedure, and I think by adding Mythic into it, you're basically kind of reproducing the appendix random generation from AD&D, which is a good thing, because then you don't need to have a GM. Everybody can get to play a character, and nobody has to, be engaged the entire time.
Yeah, and the way kind of Twilight 2000 works. I've noticed this in a few of the Free League games. Is it like you have your shifts, and each shift in itself kind of acts as a scene. And the way like Mythic works is at the beginning of each scene, you're going to test to see if the scene's going to go as you planned, or if something is going to change it, or there's going to be an alteration to it.
Yeah.
And, excuse me. And the higher the chaos factor, the more crazy it gets, right? And then you end up like having something that affects a like an NPC or a character, and you have this list of NPCs and characters and story threads and stuff, and like you roll on that, and then that's what's building the story. So like, yeah, you could totally run almost any game, or maybe any game without a DM if you like play it properly.
I went to the movies the other day and I saw a movie poster for A Quiet Place.
Okay.
Like one. So it's
the third one?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's going to show military, right? So I came up with an idea. We can play our own version of it by mixing Twilight 2000 with
Alien. You just add the stress mechanic from Alien into Twilight 2000.
Yeah, and you could
be really fun.
You could alter it and add in a sound mechanic. So like if you're in an area where there's potentially, the monsters to jump out, you could have you could kind of use something like the move silently rules from AD&D.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is where gamers get into trouble, because they play one game that they really like and they're like, I wonder how we could make this really crazy. Let's add a stress mechanic. Let's add a silence mechanic, so you're not allowed to make any noise.
Well, no, it wouldn't be that you can't make noise. It's just that if you make noise, there's an increased chance of you attracting the monster, right?
Zombies.
Well, no, A Quiet Place is not zombies; it's aliens.
I'll be honest. I have never watched Quiet Place.
Well, basically, the premise is that these alien creatures showed up, and in the first movie, you had no idea. The world was already basically overrun with them. And the only thing you knew was that if you made sound, they were sensitive to that and they were drawn to it. It was their basically their main sense. And in the movie, one of the things that amplified that was the fact that the daughter was deaf, so they already knew how to speak in sign language.
Oh, okay.
And they
Yeah.
had these trails that they put everywhere that they put, I don't know if it was salt or sand or something, but they laid like these thick trails. So when they walked, it muted their sound.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm pushing boundaries.
That's what he says. You're pushing the boundaries.
Isn't that a good thing?
I kind of like your idea of was when we started playing Twilight 2000 because it's yet like end of the Cold War kind of thing and like or end of World War III.
Yeah.
And you're like, we could totally transition this into Blade Runner and then into Alien.
Because what, like Blade Runner was supposed to be what, like 19? Was it 19? No, what was the year Blade Runner was supposed to take place in? 2020.
Was it 2019? Oops.
There was something to do with the production where they originally were going to call it 2020, but they thought because there were so many visual references to eyes that was a bit too on the nose.
Okay.
But that was 2020, right? Yeah. So what year was the original first edition Twilight 2000 supposed to take place in?
2000.
So you've got 19 years to get from that
to Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
That's pretty fast.
Well, no, because think about it. If they managed to stop the war, right? Like they started the corporations in the Alien universe where they had like the Yutani Corporation, all those corporations, right? Mm-hmm. That's based on technology. So basically, if you recovered the economy, and then you had certain corporations that came up with breakthrough technology like replicants or faster than light travel or whatever, then you could conceivably see the world transform really fast because all you ever saw in Blade Runner was Los Angeles. You didn't see anything outside of it. So you could argue that Los Angeles didn't get hit by a nuke.
Yeah, like anything outside of Los Angeles could be absolutely decimated.
And there's so many different nationalities of people in the city of Los Angeles. You could say, well, everybody flocked to North America when all the nukes were launching. And the people there were the smartest people, like all the scientists or the richest people. And they all kind of worked together to keep Los Angeles safe from outside, whatever.
Yeah.
Making it up, grasping at straws now. But
I mean, you could do it. Like it wouldn't. I mean, it's a tabletop role playing game. All it takes is a minor suspension of disbelief, and you're good to go.
It's all science fiction. I mean, like, what were people writing about in the 1800s? Journey to the center of the Earth. I mean, how is that more unlikely than making spaceships?
I mean, no. I mean, we've gotten to space. We've put things on Mars.
We've had somebody with so much money they're wasteful with it launch a sports car into space already. So
that's true. Well, the other thing too is Twilight 2000 is an alternate history. So
yeah,
once you buy into that, it doesn't take much to leap to okay, we've got flying cars and replicants.
Well, they could have made flying cars in like the 30s or the 40s. I think I remember hearing. It's just they realized, with all the traffic accidents we have in 2 dimensions, imagine how many more we'd have with 3 dimensions.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, welcome, man. Vid.
I mean, we have parts falling off of planes, like we had wheels falling off of planes landing on people's cars in the parking lot. Imagine if you had drunk drivers flying spinners.
Oh my God. I watched Fifth Element. I'm like, everyone should be dead.
Wow, but then you wouldn't have a movie, right?
Yes, but there's no way you can survive like one day of commuting by one of those like flying cars.
Yeah,
forget it.
I think with a lot of those movies like that and Blade Runner and Alien and like the original Dune that Jodorowsky or whatever his name was that was going to make, they're basically looking at Heavy Metal Magazine or Metal Hurlant or whatever it was called in France.
Heavy Metal is awesome.
And they're just using that art style. I mean, it's all basically just metaphors for whatever, right?
Yeah.
Any science fiction. And Terminator, I mean, how does a Terminator work? It couldn't have shown up because the technology didn't exist for it to be invented, yet it came from the future. So now we're like, oh, okay, so now it's a parallel universe. and they just sort of shifted over.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then you got multiverse in the MCU, right? So really, you can just do anything you want. You just have to accept that this is what you're doing, and it's all in fun.
Well, yeah. So that being said, our guys in Twilight 2000 are going to end up working for the Wayland-Yutani
Peter Wayland.
Corporation. Yeah. And then we'll probably end up getting killed by aliens.
Yeah, on LV-426.
Speaking of aliens, so my son is 15 years old, and he comes to me a couple of weeks ago. He's like, I think I need to watch Alien. I'm like, you absolutely do need to watch Alien. I will watch it with you. The funny thing is, though, he's played the Alien role-playing game.
Yeah.
He played in when I ran a one-shot of it. When I first got it, I ran it, and he played in it, and he died really fast.
Because you're a bad father.
A little bit. He was the first casualty. I'm like, well, I mean, there's other characters. You want to play one of these characters? He's like, no, I'm out. So yeah, I'm like, all right, cool. But like, he'd never watched it until this, so he had no idea what he was playing. He knew what the xenomorphs were because it's almost impossible to not know what those are. Like when you see it, like
same with Cthulhu, right? They have a cheese streets commercial with Cthulhu in it now.
Yeah, exactly. So, but then he watched it. I'm like, all right, so we watched it. I'm like, so did you like it? He's like, yeah, all right. We're gonna watch Aliens. He's like, nah. I'm like,
you know what? That kind of movie, either you love it or you hate it, because it probably is. There's an element of that movie that's all about stress, especially Aliens. There's an element to that. It's like an amusement park ride where it's like if you get affected by the music and the stress of the characters on the screen, that gives you an adrenaline rush. And some people love that, some people hate that. And if you can't really feel that, then you're just watching people have, nervous breakdowns on the screen.
Yeah, like I find Alien more like if you're really into it and you're watching it, like not so much for me anymore because I've seen it so many times, but like the first couple times you watch it, I find it more stressful than Aliens than the second one. Aliens is more of an action movie, except for when they're holding the thing. There's beep, beep, beep. They're like they're in the room.
Yeah.
But Alien, because it's all like it's so enclosed, they have no weapons. And it's just constant like corridors and like closing doors and being chased. I find that more stressful than Aliens.
Well, I remember hearing somebody say one of the pitches for Alien was it was Jaws in space.
Yeah,
so it's kind of the same thing where you have fear of some monster just grabbing you or killing you before you can even know it's there, right? So
yeah, I can see that. And then
making you unalive. YouTube hates that word, don't they?
Yeah, unaliving you in horrific ways,
extreme ways. Yeah,
but like my son really liked the thing, the Kurt Russell one.
And that's a far more disturbing movie.
Oh yeah,
because of the whole physical effects of showing bodies being turned into spider heads and stuff. Like
yeah, it's way more disturbing. But like my son doesn't like horror movies, but like things like that, oddly enough, he likes.
Well, you can look at it almost like a cartoon in the sense that it's an alternate reality, and the monster it's a character, but it's also like you could think of it as anything other than a person, right? Same with Alien. You could think of Alien like as a shark, or you could think of it as the boogeyman. Like my wife was telling me, she thought of it as a haunted house movie.
Yeah. So Vid says, I love the idea of Alien and love the franchise and the RPG, arcade games, video games, etc., but I have no interest in horror or horror simulation. It's all aesthetic for me. Perhaps your boy too. Yeah.
Well, that's how you think about it. Is it a horror movie or is it a monster movie? Because monster movies like Frankenstein and the Werewolf and Dracula, you can think of them as like there's a monster. Whereas you could also look at it as like it's a psychological story, because like vampire movies or vampire stories originally were not about the way they appear, right? Because they couldn't include adult themes or sexual themes, so that's why he bites her neck, right? Because it's supposed to represent something else. But if you look at it as just this thing running around trying to attack you, you can separate yourself from it and not think of it as real.
Yeah, I like horror movies. I like horror movies. I like slasher films. I like monster movies, like Exorcist, stuff like that. But like Alien's not a horror movie per se. Not as like it's more of a psychological thriller.
Yeah, but you do see people getting ripped to pieces. I mean, come on.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the whole scene where the alien comes out of the guy in the kitchen, you can't say that's psychological. That's horror.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's.
But the thing you can say is it was done in the right amount because it left an impression, and it wasn't like every 5 minutes that was going on. You had that first appearance of the alien, which was horrific, and nobody'd seen anything like that in a movie before.
Yeah,
and then everything else,
everything
else was suspense, and you did see quick flashes of it.
Yeah, like you'll see the mouth come out really fast, and
there's the scene where I forget the guy's name, the guy who goes right all the time, right? That one. He's looking for the cat, and then he goes through that one part of the ship where it's like this massively tall compartment, and there's chains hanging down. And I'd seen that movie probably 20 times, and then my wife pointed out to me that, oh, you can see the alien, it's hanging up on the chains like this. And I'd never noticed the stupid thing was there until she said that.
Really? I'd have to look at that. I don't think I've ever noticed that either.
There's another scene where I forget what part it is, but they're running on the hallway, and the camera, it's like a steady camera, whatever, or the equivalent they had back then. And as it's running to the end of the hallway, you actually see one of the people fanning smoke.
Oh yeah,
one of the crew.
That doesn't surprise me.
You see it in the shot, but I'd never noticed that, until it was pointed out.
No, because you get engrossed in. You're like, it's like the Millennium Falcon. I've never seen the Millennium Falcon in Blade Runner.
Oh, it's the roof of the police station.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Everybody, the people.
I've seen the stills. I've looked at it, but I'm like,
well, you've watched Blade Runner, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so the scene where Gaff has picked up Deckard and they're flying to the police station, and when it flies over the top of the police station is the bottom of the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah,
but
I've seen still pictures of it.
Yeah,
but watching it.
It's just the way that they lit it and they altered the model somewhat that you can't see it unless you know it's there, right?
Yeah.
Like I bet you most people that go, oh, I know that was there, it's because they read some book about the making of Blade Runner.
Oh, probably. What was the other one? See, R2-D2 and C-3PO. They're in like a hieroglyph or something in some movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you seen They Live? The John
years
Carpenter
ago.
movie?
Years ago.
Well, at the end of that movie, there you see the cops under the control of the aliens, and they're actually carrying the what's the little meter they use to detect ghosts? EKG meter or whatever, with the little things that open up with the lights on it.
Oh, it's Ghostbusters? Yeah, it's an EKG.
It's same prop.
Not anything. Yeah. So I think because Free League was nice enough to send me a bunch of their games, and it took us a while because we were like, oh, what are we gonna play? And like Flynn had a bunch of these games too, and we're like,
yeah,
like we're like, okay, what are we gonna play now?
Still have it with the plastic.
I don't know, I don't know what it was. Like we were thinking about the One Ring, which I'm going to do as a solo game. But there was a couple we were looking at. We were talking about. I think we just briefly discussed Coriolis.
Yeah. And I mentioned that I got the Moria. I paid for the Kickstarter.
Right. We're like, oh, maybe One Ring. But then I started reading Twilight 2000. I was like, oh, this is really dope.
Well, I think I mentioned to you. I think I mentioned to you that it's like World War III.
Yeah.
And like nukes had gone off, and all the soldiers are basically like independent.
Left alone. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, I gotta watch. I gotta get that book. I gotta look at that.
Yeah. So I started reading. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna play this. And then I saw that it had solo rules. I'm like, okay, we're playing this. We're gonna play this as a co-op.
Well, the easy thing about getting into that is like anything in that game that's foreign to people, like military things or whatever, with all the stuff in the news now about stuff in Europe or whatever, it's not that much of a stretch for you to read a little bit of the book and then understand what everything is.
No, really isn't.
Because it's all, I mean, it takes place 20 years in the past from now, right? 24 years in the past. So it's not like there's anything futuristic about it.
No.
And I think a lot of people find, you know, the military in role-playing games to some aspect interesting because it allows you to play something that you would never do in real life. If you've never been in the military, you probably like army movies or whatever, right?
Yeah. Vid said T2K is so good. So good. One Ring 2, I don't get Coriolis.
It's the vid says T2K itches my Postman itch. Yeah, exactly. You could totally play the Postman. That's I think I like that movie better than Waterworld because it just seems a little less fantastic. Whereas Waterworld is like the Road Warrior on the ocean, right? Which is like
Yeah, it really is. It's Road Warrior on water instead of in the desert.
I mean, I can understand the whole thing of in Road Warrior, you know, gasoline would be scarce, but at least you'd have refineries to go look for. Like when the entire world is submerged, where are you going to find gas to fill your gas tank up with? Come on.
The Exxon Valdez.
Yeah, but there's only so much in there for the entire world.
Well, but there's other oil tankers. That's the whole thing. You got to go look for oil tankers. That would be a cool game.
The thing I liked about the Postman was it's like I could see if there was society broke down, it's like Walking Dead. You would naturally have certain people who became leaders of groups of people, and you would start building your own little factions or countries or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. I think so. You and I are both in Todd's Discord channel, is the Hacks Press Discord channel.
Yeah.
And we're playing
we're starting to plan it. Yeah.
I can see, because like right now we've decided that the world is going to be flooded.
Yeah.
And I think the end of it is the Lightbringers will come.
Yeah, I don't get that, but anyway.
We'll figure it out. But I could see like a game set in that world where your goal is basically you're doing a hex crawl on water to find gas for your boat.
There has to be a certain amount of land, though, because
otherwise, where are you getting food? You're going to live off fish forever? You can't do that. Fish.
Well, you could, but if everybody's living off of fish, you'd kill all the fish. I mean, we don't all live on seafood now, and we're basically wiping out the fish population. So imagine if that was the only food source, we'd basically everybody die.
Yeah. Flynn said, I always refer back to Red Dawn. Yeah, Twilight 2000 is very Red Dawn. You could straight up play Red Dawn.
The Patrick Swayze Red Dawn, not the the what's his face from Australia.
It's the
Chris Hemsworth.
The Hemsworth Dawn. Obviously, it's the one true Dawn. Speaking of Patrick Swayze, I made my wife watch Roadhouse for the first time the other night.
Oh yeah,
not impressed.
I've never seen it.
Never seen Roadhouse, dude. It has Jeff Healey in it.
That doesn't mean that's the only reason to go see it.
It actually kind of is.
I know that that's a movie a lot of people love, but you know, like I like Hawk the Slayer, and half the people I tell about that movie, they go, "What the hell's wrong with you? Why do you like that piece of garbage?" I'm like, because it's a fantasy movie, and I have suspension of disbelief.
That's true.
The best scene in that movie, Hawk the Slayer, is when the dwarf is tied to a raft and the religious fanatics are firing arrows at him because they want to send him to heaven to make him have a better life because he's a dwarf right now. And what I love about it is
Monty Python.
they're just so casual about it. He's like, he says, "Brethren," and then they all fire their arrows. And it's just like this casual thing he's saying. They're trying to off this guy who's like did nothing wrong other than just exist, right?
That sounds like straight up Monty Python.
It totally does.
If she weighs the same as a duck, she's a witch.
When I was still on Facebook, I had just actually joined. There's a whole Hawk the Slayer Facebook group, and I'm like,
I'm sure there still is.
Well, there is. I'm not on Facebook anymore. But like, I think that's an example of people who are really hardcore fans of something, because that movie came out in the 80s, I think, and they tried to get a sequel made, but they couldn't quite get the funding, so it didn't happen. And even after that, there's still people who love talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's always like anything, like almost any movie from the 80s has that kind of following. Like, it's very rare that you'll have movies from nowadays that have those kinds of followings.
Yeah.
But like movies from the 80s, like Labyrinth or Legend or Lady Hawk or Beastmaster, like they all have these crazy followings that are like,
well,
you want a sequel. Like, you don't want a sequel. Matthew Broderick's almost 60 years old.
Yeah, but he still looks the same age.
Not anymore.
The one cult movie that I can't get behind is that Deathstalker movie. Have you ever seen that?
Oh, yeah.
I tried watching it. It was on YouTube, and I tried watching it. And the first scene is just so over the top about a certain topic, which I won't mention. And it's apparently, if I kept watching 5 minutes after that, it's a better movie. But I just couldn't watch it past the first scene.
You know what movie would be cool to see a sequel to? You could do it nowadays and it wouldn't matter about the actors. Fire and Ice.
Yeah, because it's animated.
Exactly. The only thing is Boris Vallejo is dead, but
no, it's Frank Frazetta.
Sorry, yeah, Frank Frazetta.
Come on, man, get your cult fantasy artist straight here.
Well, that's it for this stream. See ya.
Actually, that Fire and Ice, that movie is so awesome. I found it on Blu-ray, and it came with a documentary about Frank Frazetta, and it was worth buying just to see the documentary.
I have one of the published Boris Vallejo sketchbooks.
Oh, nice.
It's him. I think it's sketches by him and his wife, because he was up there with Frank Frazetta.
Oh yeah.
They're like top of the game. So I bought it at Comic-Con a few years ago. Worth having. If you can pick up like one of those sketchbooks from one of those fantasy artists, I suggest doing it, because you can just look at those pictures and be like, okay, I can build an adventure off of this.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, I think I was like 6 or 7, and my parents bought me this jigsaw puzzle, and it was a picture that Boris Vallejo had painted. It was these spaceships in orbit around a planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never heard of them. They'd never heard of them. They just liked the picture. But I remember that jigsaw puzzle got me interested enough that when I was old enough to figure it out, I started researching his artwork.
Oh yeah, he's good. There's some, like, I used to be into comic books a lot, even as an adult, but like there's some artists that I'm like, okay, these guys are like, they're untouchable. Like Alex Ross, one of the best comic book artists ever.
Mm-hmm.
Neil Adams, I met Neil Adams a few times.
That's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what we were talking about. We got off. We got off track.
You mentioned Fire and Ice, and that took us off on a tangent.
Oh, that's right. So the next game we're going to try after our guys die in Twilight 2000. What do you think?
I don't know. I've been looking at my games, and like I've got a ton that I like to play. I mean, Traveler is one I'd like to play.
I can get down with Traveler. It's nice to get away from fantasy for a while.
Well, the cool thing about Traveler is because every time you go to a new planet, there's different technology levels. You could have a fantasy planet if you want.
Yeah. It's kind of like Stars Without Numbers. The kind of cool thing about Stars Without Numbers is you can take Stars Without Numbers, Worlds Without Numbers, and now Cities Without Numbers.
Yeah, that's Cyberpunk one.
And use them all together. So like every planet they go to would be like, oh, now we're on Cities Without Numbers. Now we're on Worlds Without Numbers.
I haven't really looked at it, but I have the PDF of that Worlds Without Number because you get a free version of it. And I was thinking the other day, like, is there much difference between Scarlet Heroes and Worlds Without Number? I mean, it's kind of the same system, isn't it?
It is, like, other than the GM tools, like, I think all three of them, you could use any other system and have the same thing. It's the GM tools that are really kind of exceptional in them.
Right.
Even then, like the GM tools are so dense. There's so many tables.
Yeah.
And I've read through them and be like, I can't run this.
I think what you have to do is you have to start simple and then you add the things you like. Like one of the things I remember people talking about with Worlds Without Number is the whole factions system.
Flynn's down with Traveler. You'd like to understand the Cepheus engine better.
Oh, well, I've got where's the book? I've got the older one, which is just like, I can't find it right now. It's basically just
the black ones, the 3 black books.
Yeah, but there's a reprint of it. It was the PDFs were available for free, and then then you could pay a certain amount, like $10 or $20 for the printed version, and it's the 1981 version, I think, and it's basically the same game, but they've added a few more rules, and there's like any kind of errors or emissions, whatever, I don't know what the term is. But they have little symbols next to pages in the rules where if they couldn't fit the corrections in that page, rather than change the formatting of the page, they have a whole section at the back which just says, this is the actual way to interpret the rules. Or
like errata kind of thing.
Errata, yeah, that's the word. And the thing I liked about it was that it's one book. It was 3 books, but it's printed in one book. So you have an entire game. And it has character creation, it has world creation, it has spaceship generation, it has all the rules for random encounters and politics and economy and all of that in one game. And it's like OD&D in that you can add stuff to it if you want.
Okay, yeah.
But like was it Mongoose or whoever? There was another company that did a version.
There's been like 3 companies now that have done it.
Yeah,
there's GWG, the same people who did Twilight 2000 originally. They did.
Yeah, that was the company the guy was working for when he came out. Yeah. Apparently, it came out like the week that Star Wars came out, the first Star Wars movie, and so because that movie was such a hit, Traveler was a hit.
Yeah,
because people were playing Star Wars with Traveler rules.
I mean, you totally could, easily. So Vid said, "I adore Mr. Crawford, Kevin Crawford, the guy who wrote Stars Without Numbers and Worlds Without Numbers." But you can see that he's a PhD librarian when you read his books. Yeah, I 100% agree. There's a lot of information in those books.
But, it's like anything else. The system works with just the basics, so you can add stuff as you want, right? You don't have to use the entire 2-inch thick book.
Oh, yeah.
It's all the different concepts are in their own chapters, and so if you like something and you don't like something else, you can focus on.
Yeah, I mean, you can use like just the GM tools for like the tags for worlds and cities and stuff like that. Like just that stuff is you can use it with any game. Doesn't matter.
I know I've got the rules for Traveler here somewhere.
I've got them. I have them somewhere too.
Because I have the Mongoose one too. It's not going to show up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I think I just found it.
Flynn posted it in our
Right
Discord
there.
channel. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
this is
that's the one, the facsimile edition.
Yeah, and it's by Game Designers Workshop, but it's Far Future Enterprises. They're the ones who published this. And like so it's got the 3 books, and then it's got this errata section.
Right.
And then the cool thing is if they can't fit anything in the text, they have these little
Okay.
reference numbers. So they didn't, change, like the page numbers are all the same, right? So if you have the old books and somebody else has this copy, you can you can point out where pages are. But if you think that it's a simple game, this is the math formula for space travel.
That's too much. Like, that's too much math.
Typical interplanetary journey. It has a formula, and it's not that hard actually. I showed it to my wife, who isn't a gamer, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I can understand that."
Sure, if you understand math.
Well,
like
the trick is you have to figure it out once, and then you make notes on how to do it so that you can refer to your own notes.
Yeah. It is kind of cool that they do have, like, there's an actual equation for.
Oh yeah, it's all real. Yeah.
Like that's kind of cool. And they're like, well, and then you guys aren't going anywhere if you can't figure out this equation.
And then there's can't really see it here, but the old box game they did for Traveler, it's Asteroid.
Okay.
It's like a board game based on Traveler.
Really?
Yeah. And the mission, the whole point of that game was there's an asteroid that they had. They were either mining it or there was a lab inside the asteroid, and somebody who's a terrorist decided to change its trajectory so it's going to crash into the Earth. So your mission is you have to go there with these specific specialist characters and find your way onto the asteroid, get past the defenses, which are robots and stuff, and change the flight trajectory, or all life is going to be wiped out on the Earth.
That sounds like a Bruce Willis movie.
Yeah, it's like Die Hard in space.
Right? It's big. It's a mix of Die Hard and Armageddon.
Yeah.
Which actually sounds kind of awesome.
Well, and the other thing,
I think I have that copy too. The facsimile. I have a couple of versions of Traveler, but like, I mean, Cepheus engine is basically Traveler without a lot of the more nitty gritty things.
Yeah, it's just a different way of looking at it. But another game
is
a
retro clone of it. Oh, Mothership. Yeah.
And then this has, like for what the hell was it called? Ironsworn. They had this thing called Lone Star or Lodestar, which was like solo rules for it. So now there's like the same thing for Mothership. And what's great?
So Ironsworn is free. You can get the PDFs for free. You can get a lot of the Ironsworn stuff for free. But
it's just
Lone Star is like $12 for the PDF.
Right, but I mean, if you think about it, if you have the rules and you pay $12 for the solo rules, you're getting a whole game system for $12.
I agree, and I think I've been spoiled by a lot of the OSR games that are like the PDF is free. It's got no art in it, but the PDF is free. Like Osric, Labyrinth Lord, all of it, like they're all like it's free. So I think I've been spoiled by that. But now I'm like $6 for a PDF. Get out of here!
Pay money for this.
I'm not paying money for this. I don't care how much work you put into it.
This is my entertainment we're talking about. I deserve to be entertained for free.
Exactly. Vid says, dark helmet voice, Lone Star!
Why will evil always triumph over good? Because what is it? Evil is cool and good is stupid?
Yeah. Good is stupid.
Or something like that.
Spaceballs. They were supposed to make a Spaceballs sequel, but they never did.
I think it's better when they don't. I mean, what was that Mel Brooks movie, the History of the World Part 1?
Yeah, didn't they make the
great
sequel,
movie.
but they didn't make the first one?
No, they made the first one, and then they had a trailer at the end of it for Part 2, and
Which
they
never
didn't
got
do
made.
anything with it for years. And I think they might have made a sequel to it,
I
but
don't think they did.
I'll see if I can find out.
I don't think they made. I wouldn't put past them like Mel Brooks or National Lampoons or something to make a sequel to a movie that never existed. I feel like that would be amazing.
Well, I think if they did make it, yeah, is there a History of the World Part 2? That's the Google search that came up. So they did make it, but it came out like, when did it come out? 2023, or maybe it's a TV show.
Oh, yeah, they did.
So
it was a TV show. It was on the. Where it was on. It was like not Amazon. Might have been Apple or something like that.
This thing says it's on Disney Plus, but I don't believe that's true. Oh, maybe it is.
I had Disney Plus for a long time. I never saw it. Unless it just.
Well, no, it just came out like last year, right? It came out last March. So unless you had.
I did have Disney Plus last
Oh, here, no, it says it's on Hulu. So we wouldn't get that because we're in Canada, right?
Yeah, because we're Canadians and we don't get a lot of cool stuff.
The audience rating, it's like 1, 2, 3, or 5, and it's got a 2-star rating. And it's like number 2, 3, 4, and 5 all add up to, they're basically all added together. They equal how many 1-star ratings it got. And it says vulgar, recycled, inserting pop culture jabs into history.
It's a Mel Brooks thing.
As opposed to the great Jewish comedians from Milton Berle, Jackie Mason, Lenny Bruce, Rodney Dangerfield, Don Rick. You know, I think a lot of times people will see stuff and they just like to say this is wrong because it's not politically correct. But you know, before political correctness was a thing, that's what it was, right?
I had this discussion with someone before. So you're slightly a little older than I am, but we are of.
Hey, watch what you say, buddy.
We are in pretty much the same generation. We were both Canadian in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like I remember the stuff. Remember the stuff Kids in the Hall used to do?
Oh yeah.
There's no way you could put that on TV nowadays.
Well, you could, but it would get trashed.
Oh yeah, they would get canceled. But like the Kids in the Hall, like the season that they just did on Amazon was fantastic. It was so funny.
Well, I don't know. I watched it, and in the first or second episode, they showed the two of the weirdest looking guys in the cast were completely naked.
Yeah, that's what I lost. My wife and I were watching it. We were like, "Yeah, okay, this is." They're like, "How can we like make it as bad as we were, but just take it the next step?"
Well, that's the thing, right? To make it come across the same way it did back then, you can't do the same humor because that kind of humor was pushing the envelope back then, and now everybody's used to that, right? So
yeah.
So RPG Dad just said, "You're old, dude."
You are.
Yeah, but you know it's all relative because if RPG Dad is a father, his kid thinks the same thing about him.
Yeah. I mean, he's younger than I am. I think I'm 44. I think. Flynn, how old are you? Put it in the chat.
I wondered how Trailer Park Boys got made because it got made by people who have a sense of humor.
Yeah. Vid said, "Genuine question, gents. At what point do we have enough RPG books? I ask because I'm getting to the point where I feel like my library is capable of covering whatever gaming needs I have."
Personal decision. I mean,
the problem is, so if you think about it by genre, it'd be like, yeah, I need a fantasy game, a sci-fi game, maybe a post-apocalyptic game, and a modern game. Okay, so
you could just say I want Worlds Without Number in the other two books, and then that covers all of that.
Pretty much. But like so a lot of them will all have. They'll say that they have different takes on whatever. Like, I mean, it is all personal. Like, I keep picking up games I know I will never play.
Yeah, but if they're just books, then there's no harm in buying a book you want to read.
Yeah, especially if they're PDFs and they don't take up any space on my bookshelf.
I mean, I showed you this earlier. I have this. I haven't even opened it yet.
Yeah.
But I know that, especially because you can play it solo, I will play it.
Yeah, because you could take like, oh, it's it's raining today. I don't feel like doing anything. I'm gonna spend the day playing Blades in the Dark by myself.
And I happened to see that on the shelf when I was in a local store, and I thought, I had a PDF which gave the solo rules for it, but didn't have the rule book. So I thought, well, I'm going to buy that because I know I want to play it someday. And sometimes you read, like I own Ironsworn. I've never played it, but
Yeah,
I like using the oracles from it.
Yeah, I think like every game you pick up, you might find something interesting in it that is a little different. Like for myself, Twilight 2000 was something very different than anything I've seen before. And I knew nothing about it until like you said, hey, it's like World War III and all the soldiers in Eastern Europe are like on their own. I was like, I'm down. 100%. I'm down.
I was at the store.
I could see most of my friends being in that situation in a couple of years.
I was at the store the other day when I bought Twilight 2000. I was at the store I haven't been to in a while, so I wanted to buy something. And before I walked up to the counter, the owner and another customer were talking about it. And then I walked up and I showed, oh, I'm buying this. And they're like, oh, yeah, we were just talking about that. And I made the passing comment that, like, the great thing about it is there's solo rules for it now. And you don't even need to come up with stories because there's so much military stuff in the news right now. You can just get inspiration from that.
Oh, yeah.
Or like, any World War II movie. Like Kelly's Heroes. I mean, that's kind of what our game is turning into because we're looking
right now, yeah, because we're going after World War II gold. Going after gold that's like 60 years old. Sure. Which makes a question. So it said, like, because I've been editing that video, which is
3 hours long.
Well, I've gotten it down to 2.5 hours now. But
there's actually that much usable content in it.
Usable, subjective. So like I was watching it. I'm like, wait, it's not a guy who just happens to know where the gold is. It's a guy who was there. So this dude's like 80, 90 years
old. Okay. I missed that part.
Yeah, no, like I didn't pick up on it either. Then like when I was editing it, I rewatched it. That it said like it was someone who was there, like this guy who was there. Like I'm like, oh Jesus, this guy's super old.
Well, let's do the math here. So it takes place in 2000, and if he was at least a teenager, say he was 16 and he was around there, so that would have been what, 1940? What year?
Anytime between 39 and 45.
Okay, so say 1942, right? He was 16 and 42, so he would be 76, wouldn't he?
If he was 16 and 42,
so add 58 years.
58 years.
So it'd be 74.
74. Oh yeah.
So it's not that far-fetched. And it doesn't say that he was like involved in hiding the gold. He just says he knows where it is, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I mean, it's weird seeing the things that I pick up on now that like I'm rewatching it. Like, because I have to like, and it takes forever. I've been editing this video for days.
Did you notice what RPG Dad said in the comments about his age? I'm about this.
Yeah, you're about 44.
So even though we're admitting our ages, I'm 51. He won't even in the private chat. He won't even tell us his age.
I'm somewhere. Well, it's not private. It's on YouTube. I'm somewhere between 42 and 46.
Depending if you're looking at metric or imperial. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Still trying to explain how metric works to RPG Dad. It's so easy, and he's
go buy a ruler that has inches and centimeters on it. And then just multiply it by 10 or whatever.
It's approximately 6 bottles of Mountain Dew.
There you go.
There you go. All right. What time is it? 9 o'clock. Well, we've been going for about an hour. I think he also said that his grandpa was in World War II. And Vid said, "I get what you gents are getting at. It makes sense." Yeah.
Well, what
I mean,
what comment did that apply to?
I'm pretty sure the number of RPGs that.
Okay.
At what point do you have too many? I have hundreds. Although now I'm looking at fewer systems and more at resources.
I have an answer for him.
What?
You know you have too many RPG books when you look at your collection and go, I have too many RPG books.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like you have too many, then you're fine.
Yeah. You're like, no, I still use them a lot of these. Although I will say I am at the point where I don't think I need any more like OSR type books.
Yeah, but that's a certain type of game, right?
Yeah. And like the more I've read, the more I'm like, they're all the same game.
Well, any game is the same game because all you got to do is say, well, okay, it's telling you to use these certain dice and there's these certain mechanics that we're applying to it. Every game is, I'm making up things as I go along, right?
Well, yeah. Like, I mean, you could feasibly say the same thing about most Free League games. They're all using the same engine. They're the same game. It's just a different reskinning of it.
Well, they tweak the mechanics to suit the theme. Like the stress mechanic in the Blade Runner game is different than the stress mechanic in Alien.
Yeah.
And I think that you could potentially manipulate them so you can make them the same thing, but you play the game because you like the story of the game, right?
Yeah. How do you feel about that? About like IP games, like games like based on Alien, based on Blade Runner, and now like there's Walking Dead with Free League. There's the Dune game. I mean, there's always been like a Star Wars game since the 80s.
Yeah.
Different companies have had it. Like, how do you feel about that as opposed to a company creating their own sort of world?
I think it's fine. I mean, basically the customers will decide if it's successful because if it doesn't sell, then that sends them a message that we didn't want this game. But like anything else, it's like when you look at fast food, how many different burger chains are there?
Well,
right?
That's true. Yeah.
You like something or you don't. I mean, I think a lot of times, like especially with like we were talking about how many games you have and games you'll never play. If you like collecting things, then that's a reason enough for them to be made. I mean, they're just it's like some people collect a lot of books and other people think, well, why would you want to have all those books in your house? You read a book, why do you want to read it again? But
yeah,
people like to have books.
That's why my shelves are curved. But yeah, like I appreciate it. I like the Alien game. I haven't played Blade Runner yet. I'm sure we will play it one day because you bring it up all the time.
Well, because it's an awesome game.
Yeah. But I also kind of think like if that's what you wanted to do, you could create Alien in say Mothership.
Yeah, I mean, Traveler. You could do Alien. You could do. There's a Warhammer 40,000 game. Isn't there an RPG of that? I mean, Gene
there's
a rip off of Aliens.
Warhammer 40,000 games. There's a couple of Warhammer 40K games that are like, and each one focuses on a different aspect of 40K. And
yeah, like if you're a Space Marine or if you're an Inquisitor or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, I get it. I get why you would capitalize on, but it's. I mean, even from Freeway's point of view, they're not capitalizing on the popularity of an
no,
IP.
because they're making IPs that are 20 years old, right?
But they're IPs that work as role-playing games.
Yeah, I mean, I think they probably when they go after something like that, they think, well, what is something that has a cult following or something that, like they're bringing out a new Alien movie next year or whatever, that Alien Romulus. And, if the studio didn't think that people would pay to see it, they wouldn't make it. So not everything is for everybody. And if, you happen to like a lot of variety of things, then that's great that they come out with games based on IPs and some games that are original, because that gives you a reason to collect other things, right?
Yeah. What about Dune? Have you looked at? I know you're a big fan of Dune. Have you looked at the Dune game?
No, I haven't, because I feel like it's like Star Wars. I would never. The only thing I've bought of Star Wars is the movies, and like I'm buying the Andor Blu-ray when it comes out because I like that show. But there's so much stuff for Star Wars. I know that if I started buying anything like Star Wars Lego or Star Wars action figures or whatever, I would want all of it. So I know don't buy any of it. And with Dune, I think there's like 20 novels or something like that.
Yeah, but only like 3 of them are good.
Right, but I'm just saying that like if you're the type of person that wants to collect everything, then there's certain limits to what I would want to buy. I'm sure that the Dune role-playing game is great, but I can replicate that without having to buy that game.
Yeah, like my thing with it, like I enjoyed it. Like it's been several years since I've read Dune. Like I enjoy the movies. I really like the new versions of the movies.
Are you going to see part
3? I haven't seen the second one yet.
No, part 3. You're going to do a part 3 now.
Yeah, of course they are. But I don't know how I'd run a game in the world of Dune. Like it's so political. It's so much political intrigue. I don't know if I could run that game.
You couldn't play all levels of it because, like you're saying, it's big. Like I was watching a video which was like the history of human civilization in Dune, and it was like, I think it was like 2 hours long or something, and it covered all of the events up until the beginning of the first novel, all to do with the AI, and there was a war between humans and AI, and all this stuff. And it's really cool, and you could probably pick any aspect of that timeline and play a game in it, but it's such a long story, and there's so many elements to it. You'd have to pick one part of it. Like the Alien role-playing game, you can play a space marine, you can play
space
trucker, you can play an explorer, a settler. I think they're going to do a book for like bureaucrats, and even I think they're talking about doing a book for the androids. So
you could play Paul Reiser.
Yeah,
nice.
Well, I mean, even in the basic rules, there's a character archetype of a bureaucrat.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can play Paul Reiser.
Nice. I want to play Mad About You version Paul Reiser in Alien World though.
Well, you could. You just you never run into the monster, because then that would be the end of the story.
Well, that's the monsters Helen Hunt. All right. I think that's enough.
On that note,
yeah. Now that I've insulted a 90s sitcom icon,
yes,
I think that's it for tonight.
All right.
So I hope you guys had a good time. We had a good time chatting with you guys, and until next time.
I always like getting told I'm old in the chat.
You are old. So Paul from RPG Abstractionist has a channel. I did not put a link to it, and
I don't have any videos of it, so
that doesn't matter. Hey, look how popular you'll be if you get like subscribers before you even post anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Because there'll be a lot of stress on you, like post like your first video is going to have to be fantastic.
Well, I'll just do a freely unboxing video, and then that'll get me ratings through the roof.
There you go. Oh yeah, because my last freely video is just doing great.
You gotta have you gotta have music for your videos, man.
Lynn said, "You're my friend, Paul. It's allowed to make fun of you."
Okay,
that's true. All right. Until then, everyone go subscribe to Paul's YouTube channel. I'll put a link eventually in the description. And until next time.
Hey, hang on. They can put comments in saying what they'd want to see a video about.
There you go. Let us know. Maybe next time our game's canceled, maybe we'll have another chat like this, and
sure,
we'll stream it. Or maybe Paul will cancel a Friday night game, and I'll talk to Flynn.
And I can in the comments. Yeah.
And then you can heckle him in the comments. All right, sounds good. Everyone have a good night, and save a seat for me at your table. Later.
Yeah.